welcome to Politically Connected, a podcast on everything politics. And I'm your host, Diana Ngao,
aka Madam Speaker, and I am Chaka.
aka the Bishop.
Amen.
Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. Let me tell you guys, it's been a journey getting here, and we're only on episode 2. So, karibu sana. If you joined us in the past episode, welcome back. If you're joining us here again, karibu. And this journey of politically connected.
Being episode 2 means it's a point of no return.
Yeah,
Now people are expecting content. So, kila wiki,
Itabidi.
we have to be there no matter what.
They will not believe.
So, there's something that I've had on my mind. Apathy. This word, apathy. Political apathy.
Yeah.
I think in the last 2-3 months, Kenyans have been anything but apathetic.
Yeah.
But I think part of the reason the uproar, the clamor, the man was so surprising is because of a history of apathy. It's not a very long history, but I think it is a history that has been consequence of a series of political events.
Yeah.
But first, what do you think about this word apathy?
That's actually what I was thinking. By then nilikuwa natafuta simu ndio ni Google the definition of apathy. But from the top of my mind, I think apathy is just a lethargic feeling, like a point where unasema, venye itakuwa, right?
Unaenda kupiga kura huko. I'd rather sleep.
It's
Catch
like,
up on sleep.
yeah, it's a blasé feeling where you disconnect from what is really going on. Yeah. Have you ever felt politically apathetic?
I think we've had political apathy different ways. And I think it's a series of things that happen because in the last episode we were talking about comparing 2002 and where we're at in 2024.
Yeah.
2002 being the most hopeful and optimistic country in the world. A survey was actually done. And coming to a
it was from a survey?
Yeah, it was a survey.
Okay.
The most optimistic country in the world, 2002. Wow. To a place where there's a depth of disappointment. So I think it can be attributed to things that happened before 2002 and things that happened after 2000.
I think apathy also for the Gen Zs would be like, we're in the pits.
Yeah.
That's what they would say. Right?
I think to start with something interesting that you mentioned the other day. You said something very interesting about voting. Was it in 2013 and 2017?
2013, yeah, in 2017.
Tell us about that.
So the first time I ever voted was 2013. The second time I ever voted was 2017. 2013, I felt like the political race was quite interesting because we had many people who were top guys in the Kibaki cabinet all coming and feeling like they could be president. We had Musalia Mudavadi, we had Raila Odinga, we had Martha Karua, and then now we had Uhuru and the Ruto ticket. So 2013 seemed like interesting, interesting in terms of that Kibaki had set many a record that we were like, we cannot go. Hatuwezi rudi nyuma. So 2013 I voted and I was excited to vote, by the way, in that election. And then leading to 2017, because of what happened between 2013 and 2017, I didn't feel the presidential vote had any good option. So mimi ni nani? Si wanasemanga ukiandika anything but a tick una spoiled vote. That is exactly what I did for my presidential vote for 2017.
So you voted for all the other seats, positions.
Yeah.
But the presidential one, you deliberately put what symbol?
It depends. Like I put a symbol on each of the presidential aspirants. So a happy one, sad one, or Well, once I remember there's one I write Hawezi make. Was it Muhammad? No, Muhammad Dida was 2013. Who was also running? Who was like at the tail end in 2017?
I think there was a teacher, I forget his name.
Eh?
There was a teacher. Abdul Badida also ran actually.
But that was 2013.
But I remember he ran again, if I'm not wrong. But there was also a teacher who kept talking about pedagogy.
Oh yeah, but I remember there was one like I just said, yeah, where yani hawezi make, and I actually wrote hawezi make on the ballot paper, but I did that intentionally because to me, the presidential options did not inspire any sort of change, and because we spent the first 5 years trying to defend Uhuru Ruto from ICC, I kind of now started feeling the apathy, like, man, what really is gonna happen in 2017 or post 2017?
So I think that can be interpreted in two ways. And you'll help me see maybe where you are at. On the one hand, that presidential vote in itself could be categorized as apathy because of a lack of interest in the options, or it could be categorized as a protest vote. Most people would dismiss it as a spoiled vote, but if the ballot paper still went into the ballot box, it's a rejected vote which counts towards the overall and can actually be categorized as a protest vote because there's a statement you were making.
Yeah, that's actually true. I didn't know I was making that statement, but I was just basically protesting in my own way. Okay, looking back now when you define it like that. But at that time I just didn't see anything. I can't even remember who I voted for senator. Then, like, although I was politically aware, I don't think my consciousness had grown that much in terms of the decisions I'm making and how voting for these people, what it means to vote for these people and how to hold them accountable. Who's a senator for me? What does a senator do for me? What does a governor do for me?
Yes.
I think I voted for Mike Sonko as governor. Is it true? I don't know where that has come into my memory. I can't remember really, but I remember I did vote for Pasaris in 2017. Yeah, as women rep.
Yeah, so in terms of, I think it says a lot about how we think about our politics, how we engaged, how we're involved.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine how many people do go into the ballot box.
Yeah.
And they don't even see a person, they see a party.
Yeah, that's true.
And they just stick
And that's
along the party.
And that's what some of these big parties actually take advantage of. You know, the
Yes.
6 piece.
6 piece.
Yeah, the 6 piece vote. And really, people are not even trying to understand who's my MCA, who's my governor, who's my women's rep. Wanaona tu a certain symbol, if it represents a certain party, wanna tick to.
Yeah, or your friends are voting there, your family is voting there. This is where our community is going. And it speaks also, because it's not just a question of knowing who you're voting for, it also speaks to understanding their role.
Yeah.
And what they do for you, like, what you were saying about being politically aware, and thinking about the role of the senator.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the conversation we're trying to have at Politically Connected.
That's true.
That's civic awareness.
I wonder, was there a lot of civic education in regards to the 2010 constitution leading up to 2013 for people to really understand the role of the Senate, the role of the National Assembly now, and the county assembly, the governor, the women rep? Was there? I don't remember because perhaps, once you become, even though 202 is when I got conscious about politics, between 202 and 2017 or 2013, a lot had changed in our political landscape. And then as a young, let me call a teen, go from 202 all the way now to a young adult, at that time politics was like touch and play, like you need kidogo and then you disengage again. You come a bit, every cycle you talk about siasa kidogo, then you disengage. So I'm trying to remember whether there was any sort of civic engagement or education, whether it was through our education system or government initiatives to really educate people on how different is this ballot in 2013 compared to 2007.
What I do remember is that there was a lot of civic education to do with the 2010 Constitution.
Yes.
And leading up to it.
Yeah.
There were
pamphlets of the
yes,
Constitution being passed on
exactly.
in traffic.
There was
Yeah.
always something on TV.
Yes, I
There
remember
was
that.
a lot invested in
Yeah.
civic education.
Yeah.
But after that, the civic education we mostly get is what we see in rallies.
Yeah.
So right from, in the last episode, we were talking about how in the 1990s, early 2000s, there was the subject, GHC,
Yeah.
Geography, History, and Civics.
Yeah.
So school-going children would begin to appreciate even the structure of the country, sublocation, achieve, their functions, how infrastructure relates to certain things, different positions. But since then, one can't really say that both in school and both in terms of investment from government, there has been as much being put into that deliberate civic consciousness.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So does that contribute to the apathy maybe because of that disengagement, lack of investment?
I would say yes, because imagine only when you know what your action, the impact of your action is when you'll want to engage. Like, let me give the example of the previous protests. On June 18th, we were just a couple of us. And when people saw the impact of that action of a couple of us, then on Thursday, 2 days after now, the Tuesday, more people came. And when more people saw, like, oh, this is actually working, they're toning down. There's more clamor for rejected finance bill. That now what led to the 25th, where now it was how many, like 35 out of the 47 counties were protesting. So I feel like the civic education that was done during the protest time as to why we need to reject the finance bill gave people the agency that, you know what, by me coming to the streets, I am participating.
Yes.
And by this action, it will pressure my MP. Remember even the way they were walikuwa nasalimiana?
Yes.
People knew that, or rather felt that their action may lead to a positive outcome.
And that's the diametric opposite of apathy, that engagement, and actually seeing that their actions have an impact. And it would be unfortunate if we lose that insight, especially now when things are quiet and people are feeling a bit hopeless, wondering what's next. It would be unfortunate if we forget that we had a direct impact. An entire government was unable to pass legislation for revenue raising measures. And that's a huge impact. So we see the difference between apathy on the one hand and
agency.
Agency.
Citizen agency.
Yeah. But do you think, maybe just taking a step back a little bit, do you think there are things that happened over the years, whether in the 90s or in the 2000s, that made people become blasé, as you said? Are there significant moments? I can think of a few. And I think it had an impact, especially on our parents' generation, the Gen Xers, because I think they've really been criticized, maybe for not being as involved recently. But given what they were able to achieve in the 90s, getting more out, multi-party democracy, and the height of all this anticipation having a climax in 2002, and the expectations that they had. And then things started tanking again by 2007. The most optimistic country in the world.
A violence.
It's no longer an oasis of peace. So are there deep disappointments that generation suffered that then made them, apathetic and to take the disappointment as part of the norm?
I think so, because once you get disappointed, then you're more likely to feel like you can get disappointed the second time. And I think that in our political history, even the fight for multipartyism, it was a change that was coming. From 1982, during the failed coup, is when things changed, or rather, the president then completely changed his way of how he was governing the country. So such things, and let me say in terms of all this clamor for change meets resistance.
Yeah.
And the resistance, there are some casualties in the resistance. And if you are a casualty of this change, it also makes you kind of like fear. It's like touching fire and getting burnt, and you're like,
Yes.
I'm not gonna touch it again.
Yeah.
And I think that's where also the state started to learn that, we can kind of suppress this.
Yes.
We can kind of manufacture apathy.
Yes.
So this person knows that they should be engaged, but how do we stop this person from being engaged?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They know that this is their civic right, this is this, but how do we stop them from wanting to come out?
Exactly.
Either to vote or to demonstrate or to call for accountability. So I feel like they started finding different tactics, whether it's fear, whether it's disinformation. Kwanza these days huko X, there's so much disinformation. There are just so many things that now
suppression.
State has now learned that, this is how we can manufacture this. And the person who's getting all this content is thinking that this is true. So you end up getting apathetic at some time. Like for me, if it was not for the Karua being named running mate in 2022, I was apathetic. I won't lie, I was like, nothing will change. This is just a version, a different face, but it's the same kind of system. But when Karua came in, and I will never forget that May 16th, we were at KICC, just the energy that was brought, and just it felt like, okay, Sawa, at least now there's hope, or rather there's a difference between the two tickets, or let me not say the two tickets, because it was not only just those two running for presidency. I mean, there were other people, but they seemed like, okay, so we can now start having a conversation on who's better.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I then want to ask you, in terms of going back to the issue of agency, do you think there was a direct correlation between Honorable Martha being picked as a running mate on the Azimio ticket and the awakening of the women's movement, a million women for Martha, directly correlating with this recent wave of mandamanos and women being
at the
very
forefront.
active?
By the way, we saw a lot of women and young women being at the forefront of the mandamanos. Like the lady, she's called Wafula. I just know her second name, and she was fiercely just standing.
Right. Yes.
With whatever it was. We saw so many faces of women. I feel like women are leading the change this time. And it was significant starting from Martha. Maybe we did not consciously understand how, but when you look back, you're like, this is how the dots
start connecting.
Yeah, start connecting, where women start organizing in politics and really claiming their space.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And that again, earlier you were talking about civic education, and during the Mandamano, and people speaking in their mother tongues to break down the finance bill in a way that would never seem.
Yeah, and just even before we got that, it just hit me that also a big part of the conversation in this past election was the Mama Mboga.
Yes.
A whole demographic that has never been spoken to during political campaigns. They are normally overseen. So when you look at it, actually, women are becoming more and more at the center of organizing for change or political, because political, let's say political change or I don't know
progress
how to
in
phrase
country.
it. Yeah.
And it may have an impact that is, even greater, because if we're then talking about women being more involved, and these are even our mothers at home, they have an impact, therefore, on children who then become more
Yeah,
aware of a political situation.
that's true because I have a daughter, and the more I get engaged in politics or even the discourse at home, talking about political moments. I remember during the Linda Katiba moment, there used to be Linda Katiba masks, and because it was around the still COVID time, and she had a Linda Katiba mask and proudly wearing it.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting that how it has always been there, how the role of a mother or a woman in the home in influencing not only the children, the husband, the community around, but only now is when it is becoming more and more apparent. It has been there, by the way. I'm sure even the days when there are no women politicians, behind a certain politician, those that I'm sure. I can stand guided, but I am a strong supporter of women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we're at a place where we've come from, a situation where there were protests every week, twice a week, sometimes more, and everyone was alive to what was going on, and things have gone quiet. Now, are we facing another situation where we're experiencing apathy, and what can we do about it? And does it reflect maybe um, a quicker cycle of hope to disappointment, or is it impatience?
It's funny you say that because during the period also, our parents' generation, which is the Generation X, during the period of the mandamanos, and they're like, oh, let's call for peace. Parents tell your children to stay home, or give the government more time. We've had you. And even we had also politicians saying, hawa ni vijana, hawa ni kama hawaelewi mambo. I actually think that we are at the point of, like a relay where someone is, and a button is being passed. And this person, when you're being given a button, you're not stagnant.
Yes.
You're already starting to run that direction, and you're just waiting for the button to be put to the past. I feel like we're in that place where we have this generation that is so fearless because they've not experienced the kind of manufactured tactics by state to suppress civic action. They maybe for majority of the people, this is the first time they've experienced brutality from the police. The tear gas. The political trickery, the abductions. It's not that it never happened before. It is just that it became a reality for so many people. So before it even became a reality, we were just so fearless. People are just going on the streets, and now it's become a reality. So of course, the previous generation may have seen this before, so they're telling their kids, you know what, calm down. Maybe they're a bit traumatized on their behalf. We are also traumatized by 207. That was really a dark moment, and I don't think anyone would ever want us to go back there. So when people are calling protesters anarchists, and you're seeing pictures of tires being burned and gunshots being heard throughout a certain period of time, for people who lived through the experience of 207, it's traumatic, I would assume.
Yeah. And maybe also some of the election cycles since then.
Yeah.
Because you saw in 2017, we had a very historic moment where the Supreme Court, for the first time in our history and probably in the African continent, nullified a presidential election. So that's a major moment because in the 90s, you don't see the courts as involved in being an institution central to electoral politics, especially because judges were being appointed by
the president.
So now in 2017, we have such a key historical moment, but when a repeat election is called,
no one comes out.
No one comes out.
Actually, I remember the day for the repeat election. I took it as a holiday. Full sherehe.
So after that, in 2017 is not too long ago.
Yeah.
You have a moment where people are not coming out.
Yeah.
And then you have these frustrations in 2022. Can we blame people for being fatigued with our politics? I mean, 2022, you even have a situation, despite some foreigners telling us it was the freest and fairest election in history, you have a situation where
What would foreigners know?
you have a situation where elections are being cancelled, postponed
Yeah.
in two very populous counties, the stronghold of one of the leading contenders, that's Kakamega,
And
which is the
Mombasa.
most populous Luya county,
Yeah.
and Mombasa,
The coast.
the coast really, and that's pretty much a form of voter suppression. Can we blame people who are then told to come and vote again now when they're not voting for the other positions?
It's tiring. We can't even blame the people because the people in power are creating these scenarios. That what I was saying earlier, manufacturing these scenarios for people to feel tired. I feel like that's the same thing our political class have come into. They've come into very many ways to divert our attention, to make us run around in circles. So by the time it comes to voting, you're like, can we just get it over and done with?
So let me pose this question to you. That political fatigue has been experienced by people some who were able to vote in the 90s, others in the 2000s. There's our generation that started voting around 2013. But you have a youth bulge with a whole new generation that is the most populous in the country that will be voting for the first time in this next election, 2027. Are our political leaders making a mistake in thinking that those same tactics are going to work again?
Imagine for me on my side, sometimes I'm at the balance, like I'm balancing. Because sometimes when I go online and I see some tactics working, and I'm like, damn, they got us again.
Disinformation.
Yeah, disinformation. I'm like, damn, they got us again. Maybe we will try again in 5 years or in 10 years. But then also there's sometimes I see the tactics are not working and people are more awake. Like this guy, what's his name? The guy who's moving around like the president in a counter suit, yeah, Morara. And he's really doing a good job.
Satire as political activism.
Yeah. He's really doing a good job. And other ways that people are also just educating people. I've seen on TikTok, guys are like, we have to go and educate our parents. Actually, there's actually some blame that it is that generation that has led us to where we are at right now. I don't know if you've seen that narrative. So I feel like it is not a matter of if it will happen or if it will not happen. It's a matter of when. Actually, it's like a relay. So this person who's supposed to pick the baton has already started running. It doesn't matter whether this baton is passed or not, but this person is going. Yeah, so it's just a matter of the other person who's supposed to hand over the baton realizing that this is the moment.
This is a moment.
This is the moment where things have to change.
Yes.
Yeah, and if it doesn't change, utajipata. Yeah.
I want to suggest.
I feel like Moi in the 90s realized that, okay, my politics has to change. Like I remember stories that during the 1991 NDC for Kanu, all the speakers were like, leave this multi-party guys, chama ni moja, nyayo, sijui what. And after everyone spoke, Moi goes on the stadium and he's like, you know what? Acha, tulete to multi-partyism. And of course they clapped, but I'm sure if I was there, I'd be so confused. I'm like, brah, you basically in a scan forever. And then now all of a sudden you're saying, okay, yeah, let's repeal the constitution to bring back multi-partyism. I think like Moi had a knack for, okay, it's time to. Yeah, acha tulete to.
But then again, as much as we blame past generations, did that result from their agitation and their revolt in a sense. And they were the Gen Zs and millennials at the time.
I honestly think they're traumatized. I honestly think, because I mean, traumatized in terms of they have in their whole adults from youth to now where they at, they have experienced a lot of tactics from the state, whether it's fearful, voter suppression. They were politically aware when 207 was happening. Some of them have lost lives, lost families,
Yes.
lost. They saw it happen, and they experienced this. So of course they are traumatized. You know, for the Gen Zs, this is now their time. They are coming into the arena. When the players in the arena, Mazen, they've seen it all. So maybe there's a level of traumatized. They're traumatized. I wonder what's the definition of traumatized before I start calling a generation traumatized. That shouldn't be the word. How would you
There's a lasting there's a
like
lasting
political trauma? Is there anything like political trauma?
there's a lasting effect from impact, because physically when you have blunt force trauma, then you leave something like a dent or a wound. So politically, in terms of political awareness, I'd say that the impact of our politics had a lasting effect. And the consequence of that effect was that apathy we're talking about, and apathy. But may I suggest that given the apathy that was there and maybe the fatigue, seeing how the Gen Zs and millennials came out may have reignited a fire and re-inspired them to engage now in a different way. Because as much as, yes, you have a more politically aware generation that's coming up, there is still a need for education, because one thing that we realize is that it's very easy for people to point out what is wrong, but there's this whole generation of our parents who were able to agitate for so much that may have key insights that may help us think of the way forward. So there's an opportunity for them to contribute to this new charge for change. And especially, maybe we could also say that we're often looking forward to electoral cycles. Maybe the new age of civic engagement is being civically engaged in the in between. Because this Mandamano was about the finance bill.
Yeah,
There are so many other
it died down
legislations.
after the finance bill was dropped.
Yeah.
Then now dissolved cabinet came up,
Yes.
and cabinet was dissolved. So people, but I feel like at the end of the day, as much as the Gen Z protests really achieved some really momentous things, let me call it monumental things, there's also like your apathy you're talking about that has set in, because I feel like the demands were very grand. And not grand in terms of that they cannot be achieved. There are demands that are actually in the Constitution, a constitutional document that we've never fully achieved.
Yes.
It's now seeming more and more like we are chasing a carrot, the carrot stick. And also the politicians are making us believe that hii kitu ni kama tukijicheza kidogo, it seems like a utopian dream that we can't achieve. So let us reduce some of the let's like claw back some of the things that we put there, because we know this is achievable.
Yes.
It's like creating a 5-year strategy, and then in year 2 you're like, we see that you will make 10,000 sales in 5 years. Wacha tuseme tutamake 5,000.
But we did achieve something.
Yeah, we did achieve something.
And may I also suggest that maybe part of the quiet and apathy that we're seeing right now, if we must call it that, is maybe there's a tension between being a country that is used to political dissatisfaction that is settled by political solutions, when now we're coming into an age where people want an economic revolution.
Yeah.
So this revolution, this economic revolution that was happening against the taxes and the punitive measures was interrupted by a political solution.
For
which
sure.
is, and maybe it's just a matter of time before these voices rise again if the right choices are not made at the top.
For sure. For sure, we know this. The broad-based government is more of like a calming down the temperatures of the country. It's not really addressing the issues that were raised. It's more like, how do we de-escalate the tensions? Because the tensions were really high. Like, hey, 20, I don't know if there's anyone who missed news during the night of the 25th of June. Everyone was just there waiting. Yes. To Nangoja.
Yes.
So, of course, it was political, but will there be more protests as we go along?
It's a situation of alama za dukuduku
To be continued. What one arrest say?
And I think that's a perfect place to
to
close today's politically connected
discussion.
discourse.
It's quite heavy, by the way. We've touched on quite a number of themes on whether people our generation is traumatized, that is leading to, well, the situation of where we're at now, and a current generation that has not experienced or seen a lot of political yeah. So it's interesting. I feel like, we leave it here and reflect more. And thank you for joining us for this second episode of Politically Connected. We will follow us, first of all, before when I say what is coming up next. We invite you to follow us on all our platforms. This full episode is found on YouTube. However, you can also find us on TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook. All of the handles will be attached where you guys can just click and follow us from the most favorite platform that you like. And we invite you also to comment. Do you have some reflections? Like, are we really traumatized? Is it us as Kenya, or is it certain generations or nini that are traumatized? Like, and then when you're traumatized, sasa tufanye nini kuheal? You know, because one thing is awareness that you're traumatized, ingine ni how do we move past the PTSD?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the only way one of the ways at least is to get involved and to stay politically connected.
Okay. You heard it from the bishop himself. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.